The message came from deep space, not from a single world, not from a single star. It came from the heart of the greatest power in the galaxy. For more than 10,000 years, the Galactic Empire had ruled the stars. Thousands of planets followed its command. Millions of species lived under its shadow. The Empire had one rule: obey or be erased. No one had ever laughed at this rule. Until now, on a small blue planet called Earth, the warning arrived without fire and without sound. It entered human systems in silence. Across screens, across satellites, across hidden networks, the same words appeared again and again. This is the final warning from the Galactic Empire. Surrender your weapons, submit your world, or face total destruction. In cities across Earth, people watched the message in shock. In homes, in offices, in military rooms, in underground bunkers, everyone saw the same cold words. Everyone felt the same sudden pressure. For a moment, the world stopped breathing. The Galactic Empire had finally noticed humanity. For years, humans had explored space quietly. They had traded with small alien races. They had learned. They had observed. But they had never shown their true strength. Because of this, the Empire believed Earth was weak. A minor world, a soft target. Deep inside the Imperial Command Chamber, massive star maps glowed in the dark. Human space was marked with a single small symbol. An Empire officer stepped forward and bowed. The warning has been delivered, my Emperor. The Emperor sat on a throne made of dark metal and living light. His eyes were cold and full of power. No world had ever refused him. No race had ever dared to smile at his threats. They will surrender, the Emperor said calmly. They always do. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched in silence. They had seen this before. A warning, then fear, then surrender, then chains. They waited to see humans kneel. Back on Earth, leaders gathered in a hidden underground chamber. Massive screens showed the imperial message repeating in bright symbols. Military officers, scientists, and world guides stood in heavy silence. One young officer whispered, "This is the end." But the older generals did not shake. They did not shout. They did not panic. They only looked at each other with calm eyes. Finally, the highest human commander spoke. "They finally see us," he said softly. Around the table, no one asked the question out loud, but all of them thought the same thing. Should humanity reveal its true face? Far from the meeting hall, deep under the surface of Earth, ancient doors began to unlock. Machines that had slept for hundreds of years slowly woke up. Lights turned on in silent tunnels that had never been seen by civilians. Hidden shipyards powered up for the first time in generations. Humanity was moving, not in fear, but in preparation. Hours later, the Empire waited for the human reply. Their fleets were already warming their weapons. Their invasion routes were already planned. The Emperor sat back and waited for the expected words of surrender. Across the galaxy, the message stations activated again. The reply from Earth was about to be broadcast to every major world. Alien leaders leaned forward in their seats. Slave races held their breath. Merchants stopped their ships in open space to listen. The entire galaxy waited for humanity to beg. The human message began. At first, there was only silence. A long, empty silence that stretched across the stars. Then a sound was heard. Not a voice, not a threat, not a plea. It was laughter, soft at first, then louder, then clear. Human laughter. It spread across every broadcast channel, across every world, across every ship, across every throne room. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "What is this noise?" he demanded. In the command chamber, officers froze in confusion. They checked the signal again. They replayed the transmission. It was real. The humans were laughing. Then the message continued. A calm human voice followed the laughter. "You sent us a warning," the voice said. "We heard it. We understood it. And we choose not to fear it." Across the galaxy, gasps filled the air. Some worlds trembled in shock. Others felt something they had not felt in thousands of years. Hope. The human voice continued. You believe we are weak because we stayed silent. You believe we are small because we stayed hidden. But silence is not weakness. The screen inside the Imperial chamber flickered. The human symbol appeared in full view. We remember our past wars, the voice said. We remember the cost of power. And we remember why we hid it. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His claws tightened with rage. No one speaks to me this way, he roared. The human message ended with one final sentence. If you want our surrender, the voice said, come and take it. Then the signal cut off. For a moment, the entire galaxy was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Then deep inside the Imperial chamber, a sound broke the stillness. The Emperor laughed in anger. They laugh at me, he said. Then I will teach them fear. With one gesture of his hand, the order was given. The first Imperial war fleets began to move. Massive shadows turned toward the distant blue world. Far away on Earth, hidden beneath mountains and oceans, human machines continued to awaken. Red lights turned to green. Silent engines began to hum. Humanity had answered with laughter. Now, the galaxy would learn why. Across the stars, the Imperial war fleets began to move. Giant ships the size of cities turned toward Earth. Their engines burned like small suns. Their weapons were made to erase worlds. Inside the Imperial Command Hall, officers worked in cold silence. Each one believed the same thing. Humanity would break in fear when the fleets arrived. The Emperor stood before the glowing star map. His shadow stretched across 1,000 systems. Let them laugh, he said. When they see our power, their laughter will turn into screams. Across the galaxy, many worlds felt the coming storm. Some prayed for the humans. Some pitied them. Others turned away, unable to watch another species fall. But on Earth, there was no panic, no public fear, no worldwide speech of surrender. The people went on with their lives. Children went to school. Workers went to their jobs. Families ate together under quiet skies. But deep below the surface, the real Earth was waking up. Under the oceans, massive metal doors opened for the first time in centuries. Hidden shipyards filled with silent black warships came back to life. Power flowed through ancient systems that had not been used for hundreds of years. In a deep command bunker, the highest human leaders stood before a wall of digital maps. Red Imperial fleet symbols moved closer every second. They're faster than expected, one officer said. They always are, the commander replied calmly. Fear makes enemies rush. A young scientist looked at the screens and swallowed hard. Our shields are ready, she said, but the galaxy does not know they exist. That is why they will work, the commander answered. Far below the Earth's crust, something even older began to move. Layers of metal shifted. Massive locks broke apart. A machine older than any living human started to breathe again. This was not just a weapon. This was a memory of war. Long ago, when humanity almost destroyed itself, they learned a terrible lesson. Power without control meant extinction. So they hid their greatest creations, not from aliens, but from themselves. Above the surface, the Imperial fleets crossed the final border into human space. Galactic monitors announced it across thousands of worlds. The invasion has begun. On slavish planets, people cried. On warrior worlds, some cheered. They wanted to see the humans crushed. On a lonely trading station near the edge of space, an old alien captain whispered, "They do not know what they are waking." The first Imperial ships reached the outer human defense zone. Their scanners showed almost nothing. No great fleets. No massive defense lines. Where are their warships? An Imperial commander demanded. Scans show only small patrol crafts and orbital stations, an officer replied. The Empire laughed. So this is their strength. The order was given. The first wave of attack ships moved forward. Their weapons warmed. Their targeting systems locked onto Earth's outer colonies. At the same moment, a quiet signal moved through hidden human networks. A code older than any modern encryption. A code that had only one meaning: awaken everything. Deep underground, rows of dark machines came online together. Red lights changed to bright white. Engines turned for the first time in centuries. In one silent chamber, a massive black figure opened its eyes. A human-built intelligence from an age of forgotten wars. It spoke a single line into the darkness. The shields are active. Back on the Imperial flagship, alarms suddenly echoed across the command decks. "What is happening?" an officer shouted. "We are detecting energy patterns we have never seen before," another replied. The Emperor's eyes tightened. For the first time, doubt touched his mind. Far away, near Earth, the first Imperial weapons fired. Beams of pure destruction raced toward the human colonies. On Earth, the commander watched a single screen. He did not move. He did not speak. The beams struck and vanished. The galaxy did not understand yet, but the war had already changed. The moment the Imperial beams vanished, silence filled the stars. For one long breath, no one spoke. On the Imperial flagship, officers stared at their screens in confusion. The attack had been perfect. The aim was perfect. The power was more than enough to destroy moons. Yet the human colonies were still there. Not a single structure burned. Not a single defense line broke. "Run the scan again," the Imperial commander shouted. The officers obeyed, their hands shaking as numbers rushed across the screens. "Our weapons hit an unknown barrier," one officer said slowly. Something blocked the beams before impact. The Emperor stepped forward, his voice dark with anger. "Impossible." But the data did not lie. An invisible wall surrounded the human worlds. A shield so strong it bent the laws of energy. Across the galaxy, the same images spread. World after world watched the failed strike. For the first time in centuries, the Imperial attack had done nothing. On slave planets, people whispered in fear and hope. On free worlds, leaders leaned forward. The humans had survived the first blow. Near Earth, the Imperial fleet reformed. Thousands of warships moved into new attack positions. Their weapons glowed even brighter than before. "Double the firepower," the Imperial commander ordered. "Break their shield." The second strike began. Beams, missiles, and dark energy weapons flooded space. The attack was so bright it turned empty space into burning light. On Earth, inside the deep command hall, no one flinched. Screens showed the storm of fire moving closer. The commander folded his hands behind his back, calm as stone. "Do we respond?" a young officer asked, her voice shaking. "Not yet," the commander replied. "Let the galaxy see." The storm struck again. For a moment, the stars seemed to explode. Then the light faded. The human world still stood, untouched, unbroken. A shock wave of silence moved across the galaxy, a silence filled with disbelief. "They cannot break our shields," an alien leader whispered on a distant world. "They are not weak." On the Imperial flagship, panic began to grow. Officers spoke over each other. "We are losing energy. Our weapons are overheating. Their shields are adapting." The Emperor slammed his fist into the command throne. "Enough," he roared. "Send in the destroyer class." Massive ships larger than mountains moved forward. These were not made for warning. They were made for extinction. Inside the darkness of space, something answered their movement. Far from human colonies, the empty void rippled like water. Space itself tore open, slowly at first, then wide and deep. Dark shapes moved inside the opening. Imperial sensors screamed with new warnings. Unknown objects detected. They're coming from nowhere. One by one, black human warships emerged. Sleek, silent, and massive. No flags, nobody glides. Only cold metal and glowing engines. They were hiding them. An Imperial officer whispered in fear. All this time, the human fleet did not rush. It moved with calm purpose, like a hunter that already knows the end. The commander on Earth finally spoke. "Now!" In deep space, the first human warship fired. A single precise beam of pale light crossed the void. It struck the front Imperial destroyer. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the giant ship split in two. Not exploded, not burned, simply cut apart as if it were soft metal. Across the galaxy, screams echoed from every broadcast hall. The Empire had lost a destroyer in one strike. More human ships powered up their weapons. Light after light charged in silent unity. The Imperial fleet tried to move back, but it was too late. The first true battle had begun, and the galaxy was watching. The destruction of the Imperial destroyer spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. On thousands of worlds, being stared at their screens in silent fear. The Empire had lost a giant, and it had fallen in one clean strike. On the Imperial flagship, chaos exploded. Officers shouted numbers. Weapons overheated. Shields weakened. Fear moved through the command deck like a living thing. "They are faster than us," one officer cried. "They are stronger than our models," another shouted. The Emperor stood still at the center of the storm. His claws were tight, his breathing heavy. "They hide their fleet for centuries," he said slowly, "and now they show it with pride." In the dark sea of space, the human fleet continued to rise from the torn void. Not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. Silent black warships forming perfect lines. Across the galaxy, an old fear returned into many hearts. The fear they once felt for the Empire. Now, they were beginning to feel it for humanity. On Earth, the deep command hall glowed with shifting battle light. Maps showed red Imperial markers breaking apart. Blue human markers moved with calm order. "They are pulling back," a human officer said. "They are afraid." "They should be," the commander replied quietly. Near the battlefield, the Imperial fleet regrouped in desperation. The Emperor's voice thundered across every ship. "Hold the line. Crush the humans with numbers." At his command, wave after wave of Imperial ships rushed forward. Ficteros, bombes, siege carriers, all moving in one massive storm. The human fleet did not retreat. Instead, they opened wide, their formation shifting like a giant dark wing. A strange sound filled every open channel across the stars. At first low and unclear, then louder, then sharp and full of life. It was laughter. It wasn't one voice. It was many human voices, men and women, young and old, laughing together across the battlefield. On Imperial ships, soldiers froze in terror. They were trained to hear screams. They were trained to hear battle cries. They were not trained to hear laughter. "Why are they laughing?" one Imperial pilot whispered as he flew straight into death. Then the human fleet answered. Thousands of human guns fired at once. Beams of pale power crossed space like a storm of light. Imperial fighters vanished from the sky. Bombers broke apart in quiet flashes. Carriers lost their shields and split open. The Empire's massive assault collapsed in seconds, like a giant wave crashing into an unseen wall. Across the galaxy, worlds that had lived in chains for ages began to cry out in hope. Some wept, some prayed, some fell to the ground in shock. "They are beating the Empire," a slave on a distant world whispered. "They are really beating them." On the Imperial flagship, alarms screamed without pause. "We are losing ships too fast," an officer yelled. "The human weapons ignore our shields." The Emperor stared at the battlefield in disbelief. For the first time in his long rule, he saw fear inside his own eyes. "This is not possible," he growled. "No one stands against us." But the stars did not listen to his pride. A human warship broke through the Imperial center line. It moved with smooth, deadly grace. Its weapons charged at point-blank range. The great Imperial command carrier took a direct hit. Its shield shattered like glass. Fire spilled into open space. Thousands of Imperial soldiers vanished in a single silent flash. Across the galaxy, the laughter grew louder. Not mocking, not cruel, but full of wild, unstoppable defiance. On Earth, the human commander closed his eyes for one brief second. "They remember who they are," he said softly. Far across the battlefield, the Emperor roared in rage. "Activate the final armada," he shouted. "Unleash the forbidden fleets." The Imperial officers froze in fear. That order had not been given in thousands of years. Deep in forgotten shipyards near the black edge of the galaxy, ancient Imperial machines began to wake. Weapons older than history started to move. Dark fleets prepared for a war that could burn the stars themselves. And the laughter across space slowly faded into tense silence. The real war was only beginning. Far beyond the bright borders of the known galaxy, where even stars feared to shine, ancient Imperial shipyards began to wake. For thousands of years, these docks had slept in darkness. Not forgotten, but feared. Deep inside the shadow zone, massive shapes slowly moved. Layer after layer of armored hulls unlocked. Engines older than history began to glow with dark fire. The final armada was rising. On the Imperial flagship, the Emperor watched the star maps change. New red signals appeared one by one. Each one marked a forbidden warship. "Let the galaxy burn if it must," he said coldly. "If humanity wants war, they will drown in it." Across the stars, hidden Imperial fleets changed course. They did not move fast. They moved with heavy purpose, like a storm that knows it cannot be stopped. Near Earth, the human fleet held its position. The battlefield was quiet now. Broken Imperial ships drifted like dead metal ghosts. On Earth, the commander studied the new signals with sharp eyes. "They have opened the old gates," a scientist said softly. "They are using weapons they swore never to use again." The commander nodded slowly. "Then they are truly afraid," he replied. In the deepest human vault, beneath layers of stone and steel, the ancient intelligence watched the data streams flow. Its voice echoed through silent systems. "The enemy has chosen extinction paths." The lights in the vault shifted from white to deep silver. Humanity's darkest fleet began to wake. In hidden space beyond normal sight, another kind of movement began. No laudendians, no flashes, only silent distortions in space. From nothing, the ghost fleet appeared. These were not normal ships. They had no clear shape. Their hulls bent light. Their engines made no sound. They looked like shadows given metal bodies. The galaxy did not see them arrive, but it felt them. Imperial forward scouts vanished without warning. One signal alive, the next moment gone. No explosion, no reiki, only silence. On the Imperial flagship, panic rose again. "We are losing contact with our advanced fleets," an officer shouted. "They are being erased." "By what?" the Emperor demanded. "We do not know," came the shaking reply. In open space, the final armada continued its dark march. Planet breakers, star piercers, world crushers. Machines made not for war, but for complete ending. As the two forces moved closer, the galaxy held its breath. On a small slave world near the battlefield, a human broadcast broke through old Imperial walls. A simple message sent in clear language. "Stay hidden. Stay alive. Freedom is moving." Across that world, people cried in silent hope for the first time in their lives. Near Earth, the ghost fleet formed behind the main human line. Dozens of shadow ships fading in and out of sight. They were humanity's knife in the dark. The human commander gave a silent order. "Send the ghosts." Space twisted. In the heart of the Imperial final armada, power cores suddenly failed. Command ships lost direction. Shield systems shut down without warning. Imperial officers screamed in confusion. "They are inside our formation. They are everywhere." Then the darkness struck. Shadow ships cut through massive war vessels like blades through fog. Command towers vanished. Veapon cores collapsed in varch. Imperial fleets fell apart from the inside. The Great Forbidden Armada began to die before it could even reach Earth. On the Imperial flagship, the Emperor stumbled back in disbelief. "No," he whispered. "These fleets were made to end stars." But stars were not their enemy. Human ghosts were. Across the galaxy, the legend of humanity began to change. They were no longer the quiet species. They were no longer the hidden race. They were the shadow behind every fear the Empire had ever created. On Earth, the ancient intelligence spoke again into the silent war room. Their final weapons are failing. Their panic level is rising. The commander closed his eyes briefly. Then the end is near. Far across space, the broken Imperial final armada burned in silent pieces. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire felt the taste of true extinction. Across the burning remains of the final armada, the stars finally began to grow quiet. Broken Imperial ships drifted like dying beasts, once feared across the galaxy, now reduced to silent ruins. On the Imperial flagship, the Emperor stood alone at the center of the command deck. Around him, his officers were frozen in shock. Their perfect war had turned into a nightmare. "The Ghost Fleet has destroyed our core systems," an officer whispered. "Our outer fleets are retreating in panic." The Emperor's hands trembled for the first time in his long rule. "No one defeats the Empire," he said weakly. "No one." But the galaxy was already proving him wrong. Across the stars, enslaved worlds began to rise. Prison fleets turned on their captors. Forced soldiers dropped their weapons. Imperial supply lines collapsed under sudden rebellion. The fear that once fed the Empire was breaking. On Earth, the human command hall was filled with quiet tension. Battle maps showed the Empire losing system after system, not from human attack alone, but from the courage of worlds that had waited for this moment for thousands of years. "They're turning on him," a young officer said in awe. "The whole galaxy is standing up." "They always could," the commander replied softly. "They just needed a reason." Deep inside the ancient human intelligence chamber, silent calculations reached a final line. "The Empire has lost strategic control," the machine voice said calmly. "The probability of their survival is now low." Near the broken edge of the Imperial core worlds, the last loyal Imperial fleet formed one final shield around the throne system. Only a fraction of their former power, but still dangerous. The Emperor stepped onto the bridge of his command ship. His voice reached every remaining fleet through raw force. "This is the final stand," he roared. "If we fall, the galaxy burns with us." The human fleet arrived in silent formation. Thousands of bright and shadowed ships forming a wall of calm death. Behind them, the Ghost Fleet faded in and out of vision like living darkness. For one long moment, both sides faced each other in stillness. Stars watched, worlds waited. Then the Emperor made his final move. A massive energy surge erupted from the Imperial throne system. A weapon built from stolen suns and broken planets. A weapon meant to erase everything. Human, Imperial, and Rebel world alike. On Earth, warning alarms screamed through the command hall. "He is trying to destroy the whole region," a scientist shouted. "He will kill trillions." The human commander stared at the growing storm of power on the screen. "He would rather burn the galaxy than lose it," he said quietly. The ancient intelligence spoke one last time with heavy certainty. "We can stop it, but this will reveal our final defense." The commander did not hesitate. "Do it," he ordered. Across the human fleet, a strange light began to rise. Not from weapons, not from engines, but from the space between the ships. A massive silver field spread like a living wall across the stars. It moved outward with slow, unstoppable force, racing toward the Imperial throne system. The Emperor screamed as his ultimate weapon fired. A storm of destruction rushed forward, hot enough to crack stars, strong enough to tear reality. The two forces collided in the void. Light met shadow, power met control. For one terrifying moment, the galaxy believed everything would end. Then the storm collapsed inward, not outward. The Imperial weapon folded into itself and vanished. Trapped inside, the human defense field like a dying sun. Silence fell across the stars again. On the Imperial bridge, all power failed at once. Screens went dark. Weapons shut down. Shields dropped like dead skin. The Emperor fell to his knees, staring at nothing. "It is over," he whispered in disbelief. The Empire had spent 10,000 years building fear. Humanity had ended it in one control breath. Silence ruled the stars after the fall of the Imperial weapon. The battlefield that once burned with light and fire now drifted in quiet shadows. Broken ships floated like frozen memories of a dead empire. On the dark bridge of the Imperial flagship, the Emperor remained on his knees. His great throne stood powerless behind him. His empire, once feared by all life, now broken in front of him. Human warships slowly moved forward, not in rage, not in hunger for revenge, but in calm control. The Ghost Fleet faded into soft shadow behind the main formation, watching, waiting, silent as death. On Earth, the human commanders stood without celebration. No cheers filled the war room. No smiles crossed their faces. Only deep, steady breathing. "It is finished," the ancient intelligence said softly through the system. The Empire can no longer fight. Across the galaxy, something strange began to happen. World by world, slave collars shut down. Imperial command codes failed. Prison gates opened. On mining worlds, workers dropped their tools and looked to the sky in fear and hope. On prison planets, captives walked free into open light for the first time. A whisper moved from system to system. The Empire has fallen. On the Imperial Bridge, the Emperor was surrounded by silent human soldiers. They did not raise their weapons. They did not shout. They simply waited. The human commander stepped forward through the holographic channel. His face calm, his voice steady. "You threatened our world," he said. "We answered." The Emperor lifted his broken gaze. "Kill me," he whispered. "Finish it." The commander did not move. "We did not come to become the next empire," he replied. "We came to end all empires." Across the stars, alien leaders listened in shock. They did not expect mercy from conquerors. They did not expect justice from victors. The Emperor was taken into custody, not as a trophy, not as a prize, but as the last witness of a fallen age. On 1,000 worlds, people cried in open streets. Some fell to their knees. Some laughed in disbelief. Some simply stared at the sky and whispered, "We are free." On Earth, the hidden cities slowly opened their great doors. The ancient machines powered down. The Ghost Fleet returned to shadow. Its mission complete. The commander stood alone for a moment in the silent hall. He looked at a small blue image of Earth on the screen. "So many wars to learn one lesson," he said softly. Far across the galaxy, stories began to spread, not of fear, not of terror, but of laughter. They told of the day the greatest empire in history sent a warning. And a small blue world replied, not with screams, but with laughter. They told of the silent Ghost Fleet, of shields that could stop suns, of humans who hid their power not for weakness, but for wisdom. On freed worlds, children began to play new games. In these games, the darkest monster was not the Empire. It was a shadow shaped like a human ship, and it always protected the weak. Centuries later, the old story was still told among the stars. In deep space bars, on Grand Academy worlds, in quiet homes under strange skies. The Empire threatened humanity, they would say, and humanity laughed. And in that laughter, the galaxy learned its greatest truth. Never threaten a people who learned to control their own darkness. Never laugh at a species that learned war so deeply that they chose peace instead. And never forget the day when fear lost its crown to the calm and deadly courage of humankind.